We all think Joe Milton was much better on Saturday, at least for part of the football game, but how much better? What does Pro Football Focus think of Joe Milton's performance? What about on defense? How many missed tackles? Who blew those coverages? We're going to dive into the weeds. Pro Football Focus Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day. I'm your host, Eric Kane, and you can always find me on Twitter @_Kane or at Locked On Vols. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers can get $5. Can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. Big shout out to FanDuel. All right, we got a fun show to get into. We're going to dive into a Pro Football Focus offense, defensive notes, segments 1 and 2. Award Wednesday coming up. But as always, before we get started, want to give a quick shout out to those everydayers. Everydayers, shout out to you for making the show what it is. Okay, so Pro Football Focus, again, take it with a grain of salt. It is something, it is not nothing. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, the grading scale is at the bottom, but for those listening, the grading scale is as follows. Elite, 90 to 99. Very good, 80 to 89. Above average starter, 70 to 79. Average starter, 60 to 69. Below average starter, 50 to 59. And less than 50 is considered a backup level player. Again, I don't take a whole lot of stock into the overall grade because, do you know the individual responsibility for that said play, for that said assignment, whatever the case may be? I like to look at snap counts and all this nitty-gritty stuff that we're going to get into, but a couple of the notables as we're starting here on offense. Quarterback Joe Milton, he led the way with the highest grade, 74.3, and of course that's considered an above-average starter. I would say that's about right because he played really, really well in the first half. He didn't play as well in the second half, obviously, and needed to play a little bit better to win that football game, but obviously everyone else did. But I think that's about right. 74.3 was Joe Milton's grade. He had the highest of Tennessee's offensive players. Squirrel White came in behind him at 73%. Ollie Lane actually had the highest offensive line grade, the third highest grade on offense overall at 71.5. I'll go through and look at these offensive line numbers real quick. John Spraggan, 67.6. Gerald Mincey on 53 snaps before going out with injury, 65.1. Cooper May, 62. See here, John Campbell, 60.1. And yeah, that's the entire offensive line. So from a grading perspective, wasn't horrible for the offense, but again, we got to look into more of those specifics. Joe Milton obviously played every single snap of Tennessee's football game, 81 snaps. Squirrel White played 73. Ollie Lane, Javonte Spraggins, Cooper Mays, John Campbell all played 81. Gerald Mincey played 53 snaps before going out with injury. And then Dane Davis came in and played the final 28 offensive snaps. And Dane Davis finished with a grade of 52.2. But let's go ahead and look into more of the nitty-gritty here for the University of Tennessee offensively for that loss over at Alabama. Of course, it was a game where Tennessee started off really, really hot. Came out of the gates firing on all cylinders and did a really good job taking control of the football game and taking the attack. It's one of the mantras for Tennessee. Take the attack to them and set the tone of the football game, and Tennessee did a good job in that regard. You look at Joe Milton, much better day throwing the football down the field. Overall, he was 2 for 5 at 20 yards or more down the field. That is much better than what he's been all season long. Again, 2 of 5 on passes 20 yards or more down the field. Of course, the 39-yard completion, the strike, beautiful touch. Beautiful catch by Squirrel White down the far sideline. That was a touchdown. That was one of those. And then he completed one to the right as well. Joe Milton also better in the intermediates. Didn't throw an awful lot in the intermediates, but he was better in most regards. He was 2 of 6 for a little around 30 yards. Again, the accuracy wasn't that horrible, and so he was better down the field. And then he was really good, within 10 yards, and then of course behind the line of scrimmage. The majority of his throws on Saturday came in the short game, 10 yards or less. He was 10 of 11 in the middle of the field in that regard. 2 of 3 from the left hash and beyond. 3 of 5 from the right hash and beyond. Joe Milton was kept clean on 82.6% of his dropbacks in this football game. When he was under pressure, this is an interesting stat. Listen to this. When Joe Milton was under pressure in this football game, that was 17% of the time, so it wasn't much. But when he was under pressure, his Pro Football Focus grade was 39.3, which obviously is not good. However, it is important to remember that Joe Milton did throw that 6-yard touchdown pass, it was a rub route to McCowan Castles, beating man coverage, and that was right before the half. And so he was 39.3% on under pressure snaps, which is just 17% of the time. We all following here? And he was just 1 of 4, but he did have a 6-yard touchdown pass, so that's important to remember. Milton was not blitzed 67% of the time. He was blitzed 32% of the time. So really, the only time he was horrible, and it was only on 8 dropbacks, was when he was under pressure, but he did throw a touchdown. So I thought that was interesting to kind of throw in there. Joe Milton, he was on play action. You remember zone reads, RPOs a little bit. That can all construed as play action. 34% of his dropbacks. 65% was no play action. He threw screens on 19% of his throws, and no screens on obviously 80% of his throws. I mentioned that because screens are a big part of Tennessee's offense this year. Let's go to blocking. This is kind of the big one that a lot of people care about. Ollie Lane was Tennessee's best offensive lineman according to the Pro Football Focus stats. His name, he didn't have holding penalties. He wasn't getting beat an awful lot. Like sometimes if an offensive lineman is having a poor game, they just jump off the screen a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? Ollie Lane didn't do that. I'll say that. And the grades reflect that a little bit here. Overall, his blocking grade was a 71%. Let's go individual. Let's go run blocking here. Ollie Lane had the second highest run blocking grade at left guard at 68%. Javonte Spraggins at right guard had the best run blocking grade of all. That was 81%. These are all on 33 snaps or run blocking reps for Tennessee's offensive linemen. Let's see here. Gerald Mincey was at 59.9, which isn't great. That was on 26 reps. Cooper Mays, surprisingly, was at 57.1% on 33 reps. And John Campbell was at 53.2 on 33 reps. Dane Davis on 7 run blocking reps. He was at 52.7. So the guards played really, really well. The center and the tackles in run blocking did not in this football game against Alabama. Let's go to pass blocking grades real quick. Ollie Lane, the highest pass blocking grade at 83%. Javonte Spraggins at 78%. Again, the two guards leading the way. Dane Davis, he played the last 29 snaps in this football game for Gerald Mincey at right tackle. 21 of, again, this is the second half when Tennessee's behind. 21 of his reps were pass blocking reps where he excelled in. He did much, much better in pass blocking reps, and that was at 21 reps for Dane Davis, 77% at right tackle. John Campbell, 48 reps, 73% in terms of pass blocking grade, but he did have the big whiff that led to the scoop and score and the final nail in the coffin, if you will, but that was John Campbell's miss. And then we got Cooper Mays at 65%, Gerald Mincey at 43%, on 27 reps. Reminder, Gerald Mincey is trying to play through a knee injury here. And obviously that is greatly limiting his ability to pass protect right now. 43% on 27 reps. So that's kind of the getting in the weeds a little bit on the offensive side of the football, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. We'll look at defense, snap counts, pass rushing grades, coverage grades, all that and more. That is coming up next right here on Locked on Vols. So I do want to tell you about our friends and a proud sponsor of the show. That is Jace Medical. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important for you to be prepared. The Jace case is personalized emergency medical kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customizability to your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medication that fit best for you and your family's unique needs. Jace is continually working to expand their medication offerings. In their most recent efforts, they've added tons of other stuff to the Jace case that will make it better and more, important for you. You can buy a gift card today for a family member or a loved one so they can get a Jace case of their own as well. So it's not just you. You're looking out for a family member as well, and Jace Medical is the place to do just that. Go to jacemedical.com. I encourage you to do that. And while you're there, enter the promo code Locked On at checkout, and you're going to get a $20 discount. That is a $20 discount on your order. That promo code is Locked On at JASE Medical.com. JaceMedical.com. Enter the promo code Locked On for a $20 discount. JaceMedical.com. Also want to say about our friends over at FanDuel, very big proud sponsor of the show. Always enjoy working with FanDuel. You can snap into the NFL season right now with FanDuel because it is America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on all that action. This app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, those totals where you can decide if you want to hit the over, if you want to hit the under, and so much more. Trust me, especially if you're new, I encourage you to do the player props, individual player props for quarters, for halves, for games, receptions, touchdowns, tackles, whatever it is, they've got it at FanDuel Sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season today. FanDuel, its official partner of the NFL. We'll go back into your Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys, as always, for being here. We'll get back into the Pro Football Focus notes that matter. And if you're listening, the grading scale goes as follows. Elite, 90 to 99. Very good, 80 to 89. Above average starter, 70 to 79. Average starter, 60 to 69. And below average starter is 50 to 59. If you're less than 50%, that's considered a backup level player. Just like with offense, I'll read some of the highlights of the overall grades, but I don't put a whole lot of stock into this portion of it. Joshua Josephs led all defenders for Tennessee with a Pro Football Focus overall grade of 84%. It's really good. His snap count went up as well. I mean, he didn't play an awful lot, but he was in there for 16 snaps, which is more than the 6 or 7 that he's normally getting. So he had a big sack. It was on third down, and he's starting to come on a little bit, which is good to see. Joshua Josephs, Tennessee's Leo, one of those Leos, led the way with an 84%. Aaron Beasley, a linebacker, 58 snaps, 79%, so pretty much 80%, which is considered very good. James Pierce, 33 snaps, 78%. A lot of you guys were saying, James Pierce was on the sideline. James Pierce was on the sideline. I was like, I bet he'll still play over 30 snaps, and lo and behold, James Pierce over here with 33 snaps. Jalen McCullough, 70%. Tamari McDonald, 68%. Kamal Haddon, 66% on 30 snaps. Put that in comparison, Gabe Judulali, the other starting quarterback, played 60 snaps, and he was at 64%. So on and so forth. So those are some snap counts that of note, and some of those grades of note. Danico Slaughter came in, played 21 snaps, made a really, really nice play as the cover corner on that interception for Jalen McCullough in the end zone. That was after Tennessee failed on fourth down at its own 34. And to come up with a huge play in the end zone there, I mean, that was just massive. Danico Slaughter continues to come back and chip away, and he's feeling healthier. He's looking healthier. His play's reflecting that, and his snap count is continuing to get better. Wesley Walker, 63 snaps. Tyler Barron, 40 snaps. Elijah Simmons, 11 snaps. I'm just looking at some of the notables here. Roman Harrison, everybody's talking about, want to bench Roman Harrison. Just like in basketball, look at the defensive line group. Okay, just like in basketball, in my opinion, the starters don't matter. It's those guys that average, 26, 7 minutes or 30 minutes a game. That's what matters. Who's on the court the last 5 minutes of the game or the last 2 minutes of the game or whatever the case is. In the game of basketball, that's what matters. And that's how I view the defensive line group. Sure, there are 4 starters out there. Tyler Barron, Amari Thomas, Bryson Eason, and Roman Harrison. Those are your 4 defensive line starters. 12 guys play. And specifically at Leo, James Pierce plays the most snaps. And I thought it was interesting. Roman Harrison here played 27 snaps. James Pierce played 33 snaps. And Joshua Josephs played 16 snaps. James Pierce is going to get his. Those snap counts, if Joshua Josephs is getting more, they're taken away from Roman Harrison. So I think that's important to remember here. Oh, yeah, and Omar Norman Lotz coming back from a concussion he suffered a couple weeks ago, 14 snaps, and, of course, he had a big sack A couple penalties, but a big sack in that football game. Let's go to run defense. Who was the highest defender against the run? Well, Tamari McDonald, 77%. Joshua Joseph, 73%, which is good because the thing holding back Joshua Joseph, in my opinion, is he needs to continue to take steps against the run. So that was good to see. Jalen McCullough, 72%. Arian Carter only had 3 reps against the run, 72%. Aaron Beasley, 71%. These are really good grades against the run. And for the most part, Tennessee did a good job against the run. Had a gain of 30 there right out of the halftime break for Chase McClellan. He ended up with like 115 rushing yards. But I thought overall in the day, it was pretty steady for Tennessee. And the run grades reflect that. Let's look at pass rush, okay? And then we'll end on coverage. All right, pass rush. Let's see here. James Pierce had 1 sack. He had no hurries outside of that. Let's see here. Yeah. So James Pierce did have a sack, but a relatively quiet day in comparison to what he was against Texas A&M, if that makes sense. Now Tennessee overall didn't have as many quarterback hits as many as quarterback hurries as they did against A&M, but yeah, Joshua Joseph that had a sack, that was on 3rd down. Gabe Jeudy-Lally, a corner blitz on 3rd. See, what I love about this, a lot of these sacks are coming on 3rd downs. Love to see it. Gabe Jeudy-Lally, a sack on 3rd down. James Pierce, a strip sack on 3rd down. And Omar Norman-Lott also had a sack as well. Let's go look at the coverage grades, and this is what we're all like really interested in seeing, shall we? Defensive backs, how many times they were targeted, how many times the ball was thrown their way, how many receptions they gave up, and of course what that grade is. I thought Jalen Milroe obviously had a strong second half. Thought he got stronger as the game went on, and I think on the season he's getting stronger and stronger, which is good for Alabama. Not so good for the rest of college football and SEC fans. Gabe Jeudy-Lally was targeted twice. He gave up 1 reception for 17 yards. Aaron Beasley targeted once, gave up 1 reception for 3 yards. Or for 0 yards, excuse me. Let's see here. Danico Slaughter was targeted 4 times, gave up 3 receptions for 37 yards and 1 touchdown. Of course, he was responsible for the interception to Jalen McCullough, as I mentioned earlier. He got a hand on it, kept it, kind of tipped it back there to him. Really nice play. But Danico Slaughter was targeted 4 times, gave up 3 receptions for 37 yards and a touchdown. Tamari McDonald, he was targeted 4 times, gave up 3 receptions for 60 yards. That was his play. Was it Isaiah Bond or Burton? Whoever had the big long reception on the second play, the touchdown, right? I mean, that's McDonald's guy, but he had no safety help, and it looked like McDonald kind of tripped. But 60 yards given up, 1 touchdown, targeted 4 times, gave up 3 receptions. Let's see here. Aaron Carter targeted once, gave up 1 reception for 11 yards. Caleb Perry targeted once, gave up 1 reception for 22 yards. And then Elijah Herring targeted 5 times, gave up 4 receptions for 73 yards in this football game with some of those crossing things over the middle. So again, I like to look at the Pro Football Focus notes because I think these notes that I read off are what matters and kind of give you a feel for who's covering well, who's getting back to the quarterback well. Who's blocking well, who's a better run blocker, who's a better pass blocker. Hope you guys enjoy it. I know it's a lot of numbers at you, but if you really listen and you kind of make a habit of listening on these Wednesday shows, you really do have a better idea kind of going into the next game. Like, oh yeah, this guy's a really good stud Leo, good stud outside linebacker. Well, that's not good because Gerald Mincey's not been good as a pass blocker here lately with that knee injury. Tennessee might need to do a 6-man protecting over there with a tight end or a running back. Just kind of stuff like that. Maybe you want to nerd out. I nerd out a lot of times, but that's just kind of what I do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Pro Football Focus. We do it every single Wednesday. Tomorrow we're going to look at Kentucky. What makes Kentucky tick? We'll get a special guest on as well, breaking down the Wildcats of Kentucky. That's what you have to look forward to tomorrow. But coming up next here on Locked On Vols, we're going to take a listen to Josh Ward of Ward Wednesday, as we do every single Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That is ebaymotors.com. One more time, it's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Just as we do every single Wednesday here on Locked On Vols, we welcome on our guy Josh Ward of 99.1 The Sports Animal for what we call Ward Wednesday. Josh, Tennessee, a great start. Tennessee, a horrible, horrible finish. A frustrating day in Tuscaloosa last weekend.
Yeah, it was. The first half showed the potential of Tennessee's football team, and hitting your potential all the time is going to be difficult. I think that's proven true to this point for Tennessee, but to then come back to earth and splat the way Tennessee did in the second half is, it's kind of concerning with what happens next. It brings up the fears that I think fans had a few weeks ago, because there are a number of games that really matter. This week really matters for Tennessee. So how Tennessee responds, how much closer Tennessee can get back to being that first half team and maintaining that level of play is going to determine where the rest of the season goes.
So in your estimation, just sitting there watching it, reviewing it the first couple of days of this week, what happened to Tennessee? What happened? That was a completely different ball club in the second half compared to the first half.
Well, Elijah Herring's post-game comment about thinking they had won the game makes a lot of sense. And Alabama looked like a team that came out of the half saying, we're not going to let Tennessee win the game. And the first half Tennessee that we saw that appeared maybe more aggressive, wanting to be more physical, that didn't show in the second half. And Alabama corrected some things. They made some plays, and I know officiating is a part of the conversation. To me, the conversation has to be about the way Alabama played and how Tennessee couldn't find any kind of response. Offensively, Tennessee couldn't do anything. I think some decisions by Josh Heupel put the defense in a tough spot where it already had so much on its shoulders and back that it had to carry in the second half, and it became too much and it broke.
Allow me to talk about it again after, before I say I've talked more about officiating the first part of this week than I care to. I'm about sick of it. I mean, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. I'll talk and then you just kind of bounce off me here. Officiating was horrible. Officiating's been so bad all year long. I mean, it is what it is. It's really not been good. There were several calls in this football game that did not go Tennessee's way, or were no calls that should have gone Tennessee's way. That could have played a factor in the flow, and eventually it could have changed the outcome potentially. Tennessee still got to go out and execute off that. That's what I've been saying all week long. Like, just because Tennessee gets a call or doesn't get a call, you still got to go and execute. So there's no way of telling if that call or that call would result in a touchdown, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like I'm the type of guy that's not going to go cry ref. Like, I understand the refereeing was awful in that game, but as you pointed out just a moment ago, I mean, it's as simple as this. You didn't score a point in the second half.
Not a point.
Not a single freaking point. And yeah, the fair catch thing was bogus. Tyler Barron was choke slammed. Squirrel White was tackled. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There were some missed calls from Tennessee side too on Alabama. Yes, the officiating was horrible, but I mean, I'm going to sit here and stay in here and say that that's obviously not the reason Tennessee lost the game. Tennessee didn't score a single point in the second half.
Yeah, because I already had some texts complaining about the officiating at halftime because Alabama went into the half without having a penalty called on them, and Tennessee was up by 13. So I know that a lot of the calls we're talking about are in the second half, but I already had first half complaints that were coming my way. But Tennessee had a lead at the time. I don't expect good officiating, okay, in a general sense. And the game was not rigged for Alabama. I get the frustration. I have those texts as well. And by the way, for texting that in a group chat with friends, I understand. I get it. But that's not really what's happening. I just think it's
Literally
bad.
texting a buddy, though. So, I mean, that's a good thing, texting a buddy.
That's the advice that's been given. But for Tennessee, like, that's perfectly fine for fans to share those complaints among each other. I mean, at this point, if you're still doing it on social media, I think it kind of looks weak a few days beyond that. But Tennessee can't be thinking that. The players can't think we got jobbed by the officials. The players have to think we have to get better from what happened in the second half. We have to make that a lesson, because if we go in with the wrong attitude at Kentucky, while the Wildcats are not as good as Alabama, they're going to be ready at home. That has to be the mindset. Same goes for Missouri on the road. Of course, for Georgia, with that game being in Knoxville, doesn't matter where that game is. You're playing one of the most talented teams in the country. So the players have to look at it like, we lost the game. We made mistakes in the second half, and that's why we lost. Players can never allow the officiating to affect them too much, because they have to know that calls will go against them a lot of the time.
And again, frustrations, that's 100%. I mean, I'm never going to tell somebody how to fan. I mean, that's not my place.
No. I get it. Like, I would say it's probably not healthy at this point to continue to go on social media. Yeah. Like, I'm talking not necessarily from how to fan, just how to be a healthy person. That's my suggestion there. But during the game, you're texting friends, you're frustrated, let it out. I get it. So yeah. I'm not pushing back on that at all. But now 3 to 4 to 5 days beyond the game, I'd say it's time to move on.
Yeah, and again, this is more of an off-season conversation, but I mean, as far as officiating, nothing's going to change. Would love to see some accountability.
It's everywhere. Like the last 2 weekends in the NFL, this is the NFL, which is making billions of dollars. They have had major headlines about horrible officiating mistakes. And by the way, part of my personal theory is that we just see the mistakes so easily. They're shared so often that it amplifies the mistakes. I think that's the case in all sports. Football getting the most attention. That's not to excuse the mistakes. Like on both sides, again, missed calls on Tennessee and Alabama. I can see the official in the shot, and I want to know what is the official looking at to make a call or not make a call. So I'm still confused, but I think how it's so easily seen and shared and replayed affects this conversation too.
Real quick little sidebar here. In the post-game press conference when a question was asked to Josh Heupel about officiating, you paused for like 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. I had a buddy of mine that made some type of like little video or whatever and had it on top, Heupel, and then during the pauses had all the calls that Tennessee is holding Alabama. Not Aaron Carter, Elijah Herring punching that guy in the back of the helmet. The stuff that wasn't called on Tennessee's side. I had a buddy that put that together, sent it to me. Thought it was hilarious. Complete sidebar. But again, wrapping up the conversation on official.
And Tennessee fans probably aren't going to want to see that. Would be my guess.
But wrapping up the conversation, like in terms of accountability and everything, it'd be great to see that. We talk about coaches and players, officials to that same thing, but it's not going to happen next week. We can't go ask Greg Sankey questions tomorrow. Brent Hubbs said this the other day about Monday's press conference for Josh Heupel. I mean, we're still asking about the fair catch, and I mean, we're asking the head coach, but the head coach shouldn't have to explain that. It should be the head of officials or whatever. But anyway,
I would love to see more accountability and transparency, but that I'm not the first person to say that. I'm not the last person that will say it either without anything changing.
Joe Milton, strong first half. He and along with the rest of his teammates didn't do much in the second half, but you get that Joe Milton, you're going to win some football games. Yeah,
and I continue to think him running the football is an obvious need in this offense, and I think probably gives him confidence in what he's able to do because he's having success. Running the football is not throwing the ball, but it is good for the offense when they're moving forward. They can take advantage of the positive yardage to create the tempo that they want in the offense, and positive plays with Joe Milton making them can help as well. Now he needs to build on those, and we can't expect perfect Joe throwing the football. If it happens, great, but he's not going to be that in terms of his accuracy. There are some throws that he'd like to get back in the second half. For sure, we didn't see that, and he held on to the football too long probably, and the John Campbell got beat. Braswell's an NFL guy, I think, probably, right? So you tip your cap to him, but that pretty much put the game away. So any preseason thought of, hey, Joe's an all-SEC quarterback or he can be a Heisman contender. That's in the past. That's not a realistic part of the conversation. But what we saw in the first half is a reminder that Joe still has better upside than I think some people wanted to recognize over the last few weeks. So if he can be closer to that more consistently, the offense should be able to find more success. And they do need more success. They only scored 20 points in the end. They needed more than that. So they need to be better in the red zone. Receivers still continue to need to help Joe in the passing game. So it has been, and it will continue to be a collective effort. But that performance from Joe is good enough to win games against lesser talented teams than what the Vols faced on Saturday.
Last thing out the door, Tennessee, Kentucky. I feel like, without getting too far in the weeds here, I feel like Tennessee matches up really well with Kentucky. Tennessee has lost 4 of the last 5 true road games, so going on the road, it's going to be obviously in that respect, Tennessee has not had things kind of go in their way here of late, but I think Tennessee matches up really well with Kentucky. They have an all-SEC, all-American type running back, a quarterback that is underwhelming, a defense has got some players, an offensive line that's much improved, but after a hot start, they played some competition and have not had the best of times here lately, but had a bye week to get ready for Tennessee. It'll be a close, hard-fought football game, as it always is in Lexington, but I think Tennessee matches up well with Kentucky.
Yeah, I think so too. Where I was right heading into the season on Kentucky is that Ray Davis would be a really nice get for them in the transfer portal, transferring in from Vanderbilt. I thought that's really good for their offense. Where I was wrong, though, was the quarterback that came in. I thought Devin Leary would be one of the best players at his position in the conference, and he has not been. He is actually a big reason why quarterback play looks down in the conference, because Leary's a guy we talked about, and it just hasn't worked out to this point. Now, when we talk about fans and fear that can come in, here's an example. Okay, well, here's his breakout game. I know fans have seen it before, and that can be the
Rattler.
Yeah, because there's talent at the receiver position too. So let's see. Let's see how their offensive line holds up. The keys to me are pretty obvious. Don't allow Ray Davis to beat you. Pressure Devin Leary and force him into missing throws and not getting going offensively. And if that happens, I think Tennessee can be too much. This is a big test for Kentucky. 2 weeks to get ready for this after getting destroyed by Georgia and losing by 17. Really disappointing showing against Missouri. This is probably it from Kentucky's perspective of, hey, if we're going to turn the season into anything, we need to win this week as opposed to having a 3-game losing streak. And then obviously for Tennessee, got to get this one. And if Tennessee does, the Vols are still in a really good position to try to get to 9-3. 10-2 is on the table, but it's a big ask, obviously. But 9-3 is a huge ask if Tennessee can't win this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're Kentucky and this is kind of it, if you want to have a season worth remembering or a season that you want to feel good about, I mean, really same for Tennessee. You lose this game and that's your third loss in SEC play, another loss on the road. You lose this game, what do you look like in Como? Of course, you got Georgia coming up. So, again, it's not over, but
Tennessee,
you want to win this game.
Kentucky's program's in better shape, and if Tennessee loses, they're losing to a quality team, but Tennessee doesn't lose to Kentucky. That's the mindset of Tennessee, and they need to make sure that's the case this week.
The Josh and Swain newsletter every Friday morning about 8:30. You can get that link in the show notes for this episode, but you got that. You got a couple more shows this week. Josh and Swain noon to 3 on 99.1 The Sports Animal. What do we have to look forward to for Josh and Swain?
Yeah, the free newsletter on Fridays is changing lives, so I appreciate you telling people about that. And it's move it forward time at this point. So the Alabama game was very frustrating, but like you were talking about, Kentucky, what Tennessee needs to do, the matchups, and needing to avoid the loss. If the Vols win on the road this week, they're still in really good shape.
Josh Ward, you can follow him on Twitter at Josh_Ward. Josh, as always, man, appreciate you.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, and that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Wednesday edition, Pro Football Focus, offensive notes, defensive notes, and Josh Ward. It's a real nerd type show, so it's only fitting that we end it with Josh Ward every Wednesday, putting our pocket protectors and our glasses on, getting into the weeds and the stats, if you will, of Pro Football Focus. Guys, appreciate you for being here. We'll come back tomorrow and have a look ahead to Kentucky. Big week coming up, Tennessee at Kentucky, and we'll break down that game, preview that game from every single angle right here on Locked On Vols.